I just think that maybe diehard 360 fans won't be turned by this, but certainly PlayStation fans will enjoy the improvement.
Brian?
Hey. Okay, so
Hey,
overall I was pretty impressed. I think E3 is where they're gonna like really kind of bring it because I felt like they were holding some punches back. They wanted to get as much information out there as possible, but I think they're still kind of, you know, holding some stuff back, or at least I'm hoping they are. Just for people's expectations' sake. I don't even know what I'm saying.
well, there's the whole look at the console itself. Now that's kind of something they've
Yeah,
yet to
well, I
reveal.
mean, yeah, that's the other thing. And you brought up a lot of interesting points about the form factor and whether or not it's going to overheat because that was something that was a big issue with these last generation of consoles.
Yeah, for sure.
At least starting out, they obviously came out with the therm models because they were able to get smaller, cooler chips in. So I'm concerned with, if it's gonna look all that sleek, or I mean, it'll probably look sleek for what it is, but I don't want it to be like this giant, like, beef. I don't
Uh,
even know.
I might be in the minority, but I think that I like the look of the original PlayStation 3. I like that it looked like a beast.
I mean, it was cool, but I don't know. I don't really like glossy stuff because you get your
Yeah,
fingerprints all over. It's all about the matte finish now.
all the matte finish.
All the matte finish. And so, yeah, so and as for looks, I guess I can speculate later.
Yeah.
With the actual cost of the system, with all the different features they're announcing, I wouldn't be surprised. It's pretty much expected at this point they're going to have a two-tier system where you pay roughly $400. There's been some leak prices of 429 and
I
529,
wouldn't put much stock
but
into it.
I wouldn't put yeah, I mean 29 is kind of a weird number. Um, but like you're gonna have kind of the base unit. It's not gonna have the eye functionality. It's not gonna have the little strip with the cameras and all that stuff. Um,
Right.
and so I think it's gonna definitely have strip features, but this actually might be well, there is hard drive space, so they'll probably get you there. But if if the hard drive space is the same or very close to the same, I might actually go for the lower cost system. But of course, they're gonna have to find a reason to get me to want the higher cost system. Um, I'd hope that there was only one SKU of PlayStation, but that's just a thing of the past, and it's not ever gonna come back. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
so
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure there's going to be, at the very least, the hardware. I mean, the hard drive, like you said, is going to be a differentiator. But I think the PlayStation Eye is not a integral component of the system like Microsoft's Kinect is going to be, rumored anyway.
Right.
yeah,
Uh,
And again, that's all rumors and speculation,
and
so
that
I mean,
was
we
the
can only
thing
take
that
that.
I was like, where I was kind of like, well, at least they kind of have this over Microsoft, where it still isn't a requirement for them. Like Microsoft, that Connect is going to be their thing. Like that's going to be built into the system, and they're going to keep trying to push it on us. Like, hey, you can, still use this thing. It's still relevant. La di 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 da. And yeah, so overall, I was pretty impressed. I was really happy with the controller. One of my friends was kind of upset by it. He thought it looked kind of goofy. It looks like it's been improved in the right places, like the analog sticks. I'm so happy there's little grooves in them now. Even though there's like it seems like they're
and
going
there's more
for
space between them too now.
right, and so it definitely seems like okay, well I can have the comfort of knowing my thumb isn't gonna like keep flicking off of it, but at the same time still kind of have that little rounded surface, so I still feel like I'm playing my PlayStation. And yeah, so I'm pretty I'm pleased uh with the controller design, but the touch functionality is not gonna last at all. I don't know why Sony does this,
Yeah, I
but
think we all agree that the
this
touch.
it will not last. It won't go anywhere. No one's gonna ever use it. And if it is used, it's gonna be by that game company. They're gonna be the only company that does it right, and then no one else is gonna use it.
Well, I think
And
Nathan might have made a good point using like a mobile, like all the more mobile-centric video games using that touchpad actually does make a lot of sense. Aside from that, it kind of has to be a gimmick, doesn't it?
I mean, honestly, I don't see how. I'm thinking that Sony's not really going to be pushing this feature on developers either, because I mean, when the Vita came up with its supposedly gimmicky features, and a lot of the games weren't really utilizing them in interesting ways, a lot of people thought that Sony was forcing it on developers, and really, developers would often come out and say, at least once, one developer came out and said that I think it was Bend. They said that no, we weren't forced to use rear touch and the camera and stuff. We volunteered to use it. So I think so in their open philosophy, I don't think they're going to force it on people. So it's not like all of a sudden you have to use the touchpad to scratch out some clues in Uncharted. But it's random for sure.
Yeah, the way I see it is like they're kind of their philosophy is in the right place where they don't want to force anybody to use any sort of peripheral that would, require people to go out of their way to, use like the Move or, other things. And they put it on there if the developer wants to. Like, I don't think anyone felt like, Move was forced onto them. We still played all the games we wanted to, and at, the same way we wanted to. And then and Microsoft, I feel like whenever I hear there's a game with Kinect in it, it was forced on them. It wasn't some sort of choice they had. They forced it on themselves, or, Microsoft was like, look, you got to put some sort of integration into it.
Right.
So,
I mean, yeah.
And I think with Sony, like, they're a lot better about that, but when it comes to, their financial situation, that's kind of where it's like, well, you kind of should be pushing forward just because you don't have the financial room to, do something like this. But I think overall the conference kind of gave this very positive. It had a very positive vibe to it, and I think people are very optimistic about the future of Sony. So hopefully this actually brings them out of their like awful slump that they've been in. So yeah.
All right.
I mean, it was a very just one last point. I mean, I thought it was a very successful conference. I mean, just in terms of getting their message across, like we said earlier, and it's a tough act to follow for Microsoft because this was emphasizing a lot of the things that we hope Microsoft will emphasize. I mean, honestly, who wants to see Microsoft get out on stage and just connect? That could be soul-shattering for a lot of gamers and fans out there, and certainly their restrictive attitudes that they seem to have about incorporating these features, as Brian pointed out, might work against them in terms of support. So we'll have to see how that plays out. That should be interesting.
All right, and
I did have one question because this was kind of going through my head. What do you guys think the life cycle of PS4 is going to be? Do you think this is probably going to be the last console for, like, I mean, this console lasted, the PS3 and 360, they lasted for 7 and 8 years. Like, what do you guys think that this generation is going to bring with so much power, being, like, put into this system? Do you think this could potentially even be, like, I don't think this is going to be the case, but do you think it could be one of Sony's last systems just to put out there, and then, developers are just, just kind of putting in what they want?
In my case, honestly, and this is all speculation. I mean, we're talking about something that depends on so many factors in the future. But I will say that I think this is probably one of, if not the last console cycle that we're going to see before everything kind of moves over to a unified kind of way of doing these games. I think at a certain point it's getting so expensive, and the way the industry is going to have to work is that everyone kind of adopts a single system kind of model. So I think this probably will be the last generation. I don't know how long it's going to be necessarily. If I were to guess, I'd say probably 5 years.
I mean, for Sony, I think that this might actually be their last console for a couple of reasons. First of all, just the fact that they incorporated 8 gigs of RAM means that they are seriously trying to pursue a very long lifespan. Memory is one of the key things that holds back a console in terms of its longevity, and I believe that this is a clear statement being made by Sony that this next console is going to be around for, who knows, like 10 years. And the Gaikai features too. I mean, we're kind of seeing this hybrid integration of cloud gaming with local gaming, and the transition seems pretty clear to me, given the message that Sony was conveying about ubiquitous gaming across multiple platforms, multiple screens. It's no longer about the hardware anymore. This is Gaikai could become their future platform for a variety of different screens, and certainly, I mean, maybe they'll make like a little dummy controller thing that is basically hollow inside, but has a screen and you can stream games to, and has the actual physical controls that gamers want. I honestly, it may not be the last generation for Nintendo, may not even be the last generation for Microsoft, but I kind of get the feeling that the strategy for Sony is headed in that cloud direction.
Brian?
Well, yeah, I'm kind of torn, because part of me, like, I look at the games in their current state and I'm just like, okay, we finally hit a point where I'm noticing almost, I'm not going to say I'm noticing no difference, but my brain is able to easily wrap around the graphics and what they're doing. Because I remember seeing the PS3 tech demos, and my mind just like I couldn't comprehend that. I was like, there is no way we're going to make that kind of jump. And I feel like this is, at least at this point, it's not as big of a jump, and I feel like the Square Enix tech demo kind of, it almost shows off kind of the final, the final form that we're probably going to see at least for a very long time.
This is the real Final Fantasy.
Yeah, this is the real Final Fantasy now. So, yeah, like it's hard to say whether or not it's going to be the last system. I think this is going to be the last hardware push, as far as what people can do. Because the PS3 was kind of a mixed bag as far as what they were implementing, like the cell processor, and it was kind of a disaster. So I think maybe this console is going to be a lot more streamlined for developers to make games for, and it'll probably last a very long time. Microsoft, I can imagine them making a second console just to kind of up PlayStation 4 just a little bit so they can, outlast them. But I think Sony's definitely in it for the long haul, and if they do come out with a new system, it's going to be for features and not so much power.
Yeah, Brian brings up a good point. I mean, just the fact that we are seeing diminishing returns big time. I mean, the leaps, just in terms of, you look at the hardware behind it, and the hardware is just as big a leap as any system generation, but then you look at the end result, the actual games, and the leap just doesn't seem quite as huge, because when, say, Crysis was supposed to be the taste of the next generation, and then you got that game kind of running in a very respectable form on the current generation, or the previous generation now, consoles, it just goes to show that the line between the generations is kind of blurring a little bit.
Yeah, well, there's never going to be, again, that period, that generational gap where you say, oh my gosh, this is the future of gaming, because so much of what we constitute the future of gaming is the benchmark of realism, and there is a certain wall that you hit when you try to create realism. We're going to get closer to that, but we're never going to get that jump from, say, PS1 to PS2, or say the 16-bit era to PlayStation. It's just not going to happen. It's going to be diminishing returns, exactly, and we're never going to get that kind of feeling of like the new console